It started with a phone call that should have been ordinary. Just another quiet afternoon in the house that had grown too large for one man. The air smelled faintly of old wood and lavender, her scent still clinging to the furniture, to the curtains, to everything she ever touched. It had been 2 years since Margaret passed, and still, I couldn't bring myself to move her things. Grief doesn't fade, it just rearranges itself. I was fixing the hinge on the back door when the phone rang. "Dad, hey," came Lily's voice, bright, distracted, hurried. My only daughter. It had been weeks since her last call. She'd been busy with work, with friends, with life. The usual excuses. "Everything all right?" I asked, wiping my hands on a rag. Yeah. "Just checking in," she said quickly. "Listen, I'll stop by later this week. I wanted to grab a few things, maybe that old jewelry box of Mom's. You know, the one with the silver latch?" My chest tightened. I hadn't touched that box since the funeral. Inside were all the small pieces of her, trinkets from anniversaries, gifts from me, and at the center of it all, the necklace. A simple gold chain with a teardrop sapphire. It wasn't flashy, but she wore it every day for 30 years. I used to joke that the stone had memorized her heartbeat. "Why?" I asked quietly. "What do you need it for?" "Oh, just sorting through stuff," she said, brushing it off. "It's probably worth something, right?" I thought maybe I could get it cleaned. "It's been collecting dust anyway." I didn't like her tone. Too casual. Too fast. "You can leave it where it is," I said firmly. She laughed. "Dad, don't be so sentimental. Mom would want me to have it." "She already gave it to you," I said. "She gave it to you in memory, not in gold." There was silence on the other end. Then she sighed. "You're still so dramatic. I'll see you Thursday." When the call ended, I stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the yard we'd planted together, her roses still blooming stubbornly through the October chill. A strange unease crept into me, like a cold draft that wouldn't go away. That night, I went to the bedroom and opened the drawer. The jewelry box sat exactly where it always had. I ran my hand across the lid, the wood warm from the afternoon sun that had filtered through the blinds. Inside, everything was as she left it, small earrings, a silver bracelet, a few folded notes with her handwriting still alive in the ink. And in the center, the necklace. I lifted it gently, the chain catching the light. I could still picture it resting against her collarbone, her fingers absent-mindedly touching it when she laughed. I told myself Lily would never do anything careless with it. I told myself she just wanted to feel closer to her mother. But the next day proved me wrong. 2 days later, I got another call. This time, it wasn't Lily. It was the owner of a small pawn shop downtown, an old friend who'd helped me sell tools once. "Tom," he said, hesitating, "I thought I should check before finalizing something. Your daughter came in today. Sold a gold necklace with a blue stone. Said it was hers. I just thought you should know." For a moment, I couldn't speak. The world seemed to narrow to a ringing in my ears, not from anger, but disbelief. I asked him to describe it, though I already knew the answer. Every word he said cut a little deeper. After the call, I sat in her mother's chair by the window and stared at the box. Empty. The space where the necklace had been looked like a wound. I wanted to call her, to shout, to demand why. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew, sometimes people don't break your heart out of cruelty. They break it out of blindness. And that's when I realized, she hadn't just sold a necklace. She'd sold the last piece of her mother. And sooner or later, she would have to understand what that truly meant. She came by the next evening, all smiles and sunshine, like nothing was wrong. "Hey, Dad," she called out, pushing open the screen door. Her hair was tied up, a travel bag slung over her shoulder. I noticed the new manicure, the tan on her arms, little signs of someone already halfway to vacation. I didn't move from the kitchen table. The phone still lay there, the pawn shop owner's number glowing faintly on the screen. I'd listened to his voicemail twice that morning, not because I needed the details, but because I needed to believe them. Every time I replayed it, the disbelief shrank and the truth grew sharper. "Back already?" I said quietly. She blinked, caught off guard by the tone. Yeah. I thought I'd grab some clothes for the trip. And maybe that picture of Mom by the lake, it'll look cute for the travel journal." She said, "Cute? About her mother's photo?" "Lily," I said, folding my hands, "I got a call today." Her smile faltered. "From who?" "From Mr. Garvey. He runs the pawn shop downtown." Silence. The kind that stretches, bends, and finally breaks under its own weight. She looked away, pretending to examine the counter. Oh, I repeated softly. "That's all you have to say?" "Dad, it's not a big deal," she said quickly. "It's just jewelry. Mom would have wanted me to use it for something meaningful, not let it sit in a box forever." "Meaningful," I echoed. "You sold your mother's necklace for a vacation to Mexico." Her eyes flashed. "You make it sound awful." "It is awful," I said simply. She crossed her arms, defensive. "You always blow things out of proportion." "It's not like I don't miss her. I just needed a break. Life's been heavy, you know." Her words were soft, even reasonable, but behind them, I could hear what grief had turned into, self-pity instead of remembrance. I leaned back in my chair. "Do you even remember the last thing your mother said to you?" Lily hesitated, then shook her head slightly. "She told you the necklace was her little reminder of forever. That's what she called it. Because when the doctor said time was short, she wanted to believe there was still something that could outlive her. You were supposed to keep that promise." Her lip trembled, just for a moment, then steadied. "You're being dramatic, Dad. It's just a thing." "No," I said. "You're wrong. It was never a thing. It was her. Every touch, every year, every heartbeat. You can't buy that back." She looked away, shame flickering but not yet rooted. "I'll get it back," she said suddenly. "I'll go tomorrow. I'll buy it again. You don't have to make this a lecture." I let out a tired laugh. "You can't, Lily. It's gone. He already sold it to a private buyer this morning." Her face went pale. For the first time, her confidence cracked, revealing something fragile beneath, panic, maybe guilt. But it's just a necklace. There'll be others." "There won't," I said. "There was only one. Like her." The room went quiet again. I could hear the old clock ticking on the wall, the one Margaret had insisted on keeping though it was always 5 minutes slow. Finally, she said in a small voice, "I didn't think it mattered that much." "I know," I said. "That's the problem." She stood there, eyes wet, biting her lip, not sure whether to cry or to argue. Then, softly, she said, "I'm sorry, Dad." "Really?" I nodded once, but didn't speak. Sometimes silence teaches better than words. After a long pause, she whispered, "I'll go now." "Where?" "Just home. I'll call before the trip." "You're still going?" Her eyes dropped. "Tickets are paid for. Non-refundable." And there it was again, the same word her brother once used, the same logic that breaks hearts in slow motion, non-refundable. When the door closed behind her, the house sank into a deeper silence than before. I walked to the window, always the window, and watched her car pull away. The taillights disappeared down the road like the last glow of something I couldn't protect. I could have called her back. Could have shouted, demanded, threatened. But I didn't. Because punishment wouldn't fix this. Only understanding would. And understanding, I knew, doesn't come from pain. It comes from loss, the kind that teaches you what love truly costs. That night, I took out my wife's old journal, the one she'd kept through her treatments. Between the pages, I found a faded note in her handwriting. If she ever loses her way, remind her who she is, gently. So that became my plan. Not revenge. Not anger. Just a lesson wrapped in love. And this time, she would have to earn it. I didn't sleep that night. The house was too still, too honest. Every sound seemed to remind me of her, the creak of the floorboard, the soft ticking of the clock she used to wind by hand. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, thinking of that necklace. How many times had I seen it shimmer in the morning sun as she made coffee? How many times had I kissed her cheek and felt the cool edge of that sapphire against my skin? And now it was gone. Sold for plane tickets and hotel rooms. The thought should have made me angry. Instead, it just left me hollow. Around midnight, I got up, walked into the living room, and sat in her old chair by the window. The moonlight pooled across the floor, soft and silver, touching the empty jewelry box on the table. That box used to hold a symbol. Now, it held a lesson waiting to be written. I poured a small drink and let the quiet settle. When you've lived long enough, you learn that anger solves nothing, it only deafens you to the message life is trying to deliver. What Lily needed wasn't punishment. What she needed was perspective. So, I began to plan. Not a trap. A mirror. In the morning, I called an old friend, Daniel, the owner of the pawn shop. Daniel, I said, I need a favor. He hesitated. If this is about the necklace, it is. Do you remember who bought it? Yeah. A woman from Dallas. Middle-aged, said she was buying it for her daughter's wedding. Paid in cash. Could you give me her contact? He paused. That's not standard, Tom. I know, I said gently. But it's not about getting it back. I just need to tell her what it meant. He went quiet, then sighed. You always did know how to talk a man into breaking his own rules. An hour later, I had the buyer's number. When I called, she listened as I explained, about Margaret, about Lily, about what the necklace represented. There was a long silence on the line, then she said softly, "That's beautiful. I didn't know. I'll send it back, if you'll let me." I almost said yes. But then I realized, if I took it back now, Lily would never understand its worth. She'd just see another thing replaced, another mistake erased. So I told the woman, no. Please, keep it. It'll mean something new for someone else. When I hung up, I felt a strange peace. The necklace was gone, but the meaning wasn't. It was just waiting to be rediscovered, by the person who needed it most. That's when the idea came. If Lily couldn't hold her mother's necklace, then she'd have to feel what her mother stood for. Not in gold or sapphire, but in empathy, kindness, and the weight of memory. I called my lawyer, James, the same one who'd helped me with the estate after Margaret passed. "James," I said, "I'd like to make a small change to my will. Nothing major. Just a realignment." He knew my tone well enough not to ask questions. "What kind of change?" "I want to set up a fund, in Margaret's name, for young women in need of education grants. But I also want Lily to manage it. Fully. With no financial benefit to herself. So, unpaid responsibility?" "Exactly," I said. "A year of service before she inherits anything. If she refuses, the fund continues without her." James chuckled softly. "That's poetic." "Maybe," I said. "But sometimes poetry is the only language the heart understands." After he left, I wrote a letter to Lily. Not to send, not yet. Just words she would one day read when she was ready. It began. You sold your mother's necklace because you didn't understand its value. That's all right. You'll learn, not through gold, but through giving. One day, you'll see that what you sold was never just jewelry. It was love made visible. I sealed the letter and placed it in the jewelry box, closing the lid gently. Then I whispered into the still air, "She'll come around, love. Just give her time." That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept. Because revenge, when born from love, doesn't steal your peace, it restores it. And as I drifted off, I could almost hear her voice again, soft and certain. Teach her gently. I smiled. That's exactly what I intended to do. The following week, the world moved on, but I didn't. I went through my routines as if nothing had changed: morning coffee, pruning the roses, sitting by the window to read the same newspaper stories twice. But underneath the calm surface, everything in me was preparing for what came next. I spent 2 days organizing old documents, photos, and notes Margaret had kept. She had left behind boxes filled with small moments, letters from neighbors she'd helped, thank you cards from her students, handwritten recipes with coffee stains on the edges. Every page felt alive. She had given so much of herself to others, quietly, without expectation. And Lily needed to remember that. That weekend, I called my lawyer again. "James," I said, "about that fund we discussed, I want it to be real before the year's out." He nodded. "I'll handle the paperwork." "What do we call it?" "The Margaret Hope Foundation," I said. "Education grants for young women who lost their mothers." James smiled. "That's beautiful. And Lily's role?" "She'll manage it. Every form, every call, every application. She'll see her mother's name on every document until she remembers what it means." "Understood," he said. "I'll make sure the conditions are airtight." By the next week, it was official. The foundation had a name, a logo, a website, all modest, but real. I funded it with a portion of my savings and set the rest of my estate to transfer through it one day. Then I drafted the letter that James would send to Lily once she returned from her vacation. It read: "Dear Ms. Harris, you have been appointed temporary manager of the Margaret Hope Foundation. This position is voluntary and unpaid, but it carries the opportunity to continue your mother's legacy. Your father believes you're the only one who can do it justice. No threats. No demands. Just truth, presented with grace." The day I mailed the papers, I drove to the community center Margaret used to volunteer at. The walls were still lined with her photos, her handing out meals, laughing with kids, reading stories to tired mothers. The director, an older woman named Ruth, greeted me with tears in her eyes. "She was one of the good ones," Ruth said softly. "Yes," I answered. "She still is." We sat for a while, and I asked Ruth for one more favor. "If my daughter reaches out, and I hope she will, could you let her volunteer here? I want her to start where her mother left off." Ruth smiled knowingly. "You're a clever man, Tom Harris." "No," I said. "Just a stubborn one still trying to finish what my wife started." By the time Lily came back from her trip, everything was in motion. I didn't call her. Didn't text. Just waited. 3 days later, she called me first. "Dad, I got this weird letter from some lawyer." "Something about a foundation?" "Yes," I said calmly. "It's in your mother's name." "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything," I said. "You'll find out when you read the rest." There was a pause. "Is this another one of your lessons?" she asked, a hint of annoyance in her voice. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "No, sweetheart. This one's hers." The next morning, she showed up at the house, letter in hand, confusion in her eyes. "Dad, I don't understand. You really expect me to manage this? For free?" "I don't expect anything," I said. "But your mother did." She believed you'd make her proud one day. Maybe this is that day. She sighed, rubbing her forehead. I don't know anything about running a charity. Then it's a good time to learn, I said. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression softening just slightly. And if I don't? Then you don't, I said simply. It's your choice. But I think you'll find that sometimes, giving gives back more than taking ever could. That line wasn't mine. It was hers, Margaret's. I'd heard her say it 100 times, and somehow, it still carried magic. When Lily left that day, she didn't slam the door like before. That was the first sign the lesson had already begun. That evening, I went back to the window, always the window, and watched the sunset turn the yard gold. The roses caught the light, blooming wild and stubborn. I thought of Margaret and whispered, she's listening now. I can feel it. And I could. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about reclaiming what's lost. It's about guiding someone else to find it again. At first, I didn't believe she'd do it. When you've spent long enough waiting for disappointment, you start to build a shelter out of low expectations. But a week after that conversation, I got a message. Dad. I went to the foundation. They said I could help with applications. Starting Monday. No emojis. No excuses. Just that. I sat there staring at the phone for a long time, not sure whether to smile or cry. Monday came. Then another. And then another. At first, she only worked part-time, a few hours a day, sorting through scholarship forms, calling donors, organizing boxes. But slowly, something in her began to shift. Her voice changed when she talked about the women she met. She started staying late, volunteering for events on weekends. One evening, she called me, breathless. Dad, she said, you should have seen it, this single mom just got her tuition grant approved. She cried right there in the office. There was joy in her voice, unpolished and real. The kind I hadn't heard since she was a little girl running to show me her drawings. That's good, Lily, I said quietly. That's really good. She paused. I think Mom would have liked this. She would have loved it, I replied. Over the next few months, I saw her change piece by piece. The tan from her vacation faded, replaced by a faint tiredness around her eyes, not from boredom, but from work that mattered. She started dressing simply, tying her hair back the way her mother used to. And sometimes, when she came over, I'd catch her glancing at the empty jewelry box on the shelf, her expression unreadable. By spring, the foundation had grown. They'd launched a mentorship program, organized workshops, and even held a small fundraising gala. Lily was the one who planned it all. Ruth, the center director, called me one day and said, "Your daughter's a natural. She has her mother's heart." I almost didn't know how to respond. Maybe, I thought, she always had it, she'd just forgotten where she put it. The night of the gala, I attended quietly, sitting in the back. Lily didn't know I was there. I wanted to see her as everyone else did, not as my daughter, but as the woman she'd become. She stood at the podium in a soft blue dress, not flashy, not loud, and began to speak. Her hands trembled at first, then steadied. When my mom passed away, she said, I thought love was something you held on to. Something you could wear, or keep in a box. I was wrong. Love isn't about keeping. It's about giving. And tonight, we give in her name, to help others the way she helped us. Her voice broke on the last word. The audience clapped, some even wiped their eyes. I sat there, still, my heart caught between pride and sorrow. Because in that moment, I saw her mother standing there too, not in flesh, but in spirit. Same grace. Same strength. After the event, I slipped out quietly, not wanting to break the spell. But as I reached the door, I heard her call, Dad. I turned. She was walking toward me, eyes glistening, a small smile trembling at the corners. "I knew you'd come," she said softly. I shrugged. "Old habits." She hesitated, then reached into her pocket and held something out. It was a necklace. Not the same one, a replica, handcrafted, delicate, the sapphire replaced with a small glass bead. "I made it," she said. "I found a local jeweler. It's not real gold, but it feels like her." I stared at it for a long moment, then closed her hand around it. "No," I said. "It feels like you." She looked up, confused. "The necklace was never what made her special," I said. "It was what she carried inside her. And now, you carry it too." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Dad. For selling it. For not understanding." "I know," I said. "And now you do. That's enough." She leaned forward and hugged me, really hugged me this time. Not out of guilt, not out of obligation. It was the kind of embrace that heals something broken. For a second, I swear I felt Margaret there between us, not as a ghost, but as warmth. Later that night, back home, I opened the jewelry box once more. Inside, I placed a folded note that simply read, "She found her way back." Then I closed the lid. That was all the revenge I ever needed, to see her understand what love truly means. Spring turned to summer again, soft and golden. The roses outside bloomed early this year, as if they knew someone was finally tending to them with care. Every weekend, Lily came by to help prune them, something her mother used to do. She'd wear those old gardening gloves that were still hanging by the shed door, dirt-stained and too big for her hands. But she never complained. She'd just smile and say, "Mom would have told me I'm cutting too much." I'd nod. And she'd be right. We'd both laugh. It was strange how laughter sounded in this house now, gentler, less forced. Like the air had forgiven us both. Lily had been managing the foundation for almost a year. It had grown far beyond what I'd imagined. Scholarships, mentoring programs, even a small summer camp for young girls who'd lost their mothers, all under her direction. I watched from a distance, proud in silence. The woman who once sold a necklace for a plane ticket was now giving others the chance to build entire lives. One evening, she brought over a small box. "Before you say anything," she said, smiling shyly, "I didn't buy it. Someone donated it to the foundation. Said they wanted it to find the right home." She opened the lid, and there it was. The necklace. The real one. I froze. The sapphire caught the light the same way it used to, that deep ocean blue. For a moment, I couldn't speak. "How?" I whispered. Lily shrugged softly. "I don't know. A woman from Dallas sent it. Said she'd heard our story and wanted it returned to the family it belonged to." I reached out but didn't touch it. Some things are too sacred to rush. "Maybe," I said quietly, "it was never meant to be lost. Just, borrowed by life for a while." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "You keep it, Dad." "No," I said. "It's yours. Always was." She hesitated, then clasped it gently around her neck. The sapphire rested just above her heart, right where it used to sit on her mother. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw them both standing there, as if time had folded in on itself. We went out to the porch after that, sitting in the fading light. The sky was a watercolor of orange and lavender, the same colors Margaret used to paint. Lily leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you ever stop missing her?" she asked softly. I took a deep breath. "No. You just learn to live in the space she left behind. It's quieter, but it's still full." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I think I know what you mean." The crickets started their song, and for a while, neither of us said anything. The world didn't need words just then. Inside, the old clock ticked, still 5 minutes slow. Margaret always said that was good luck, that being a few minutes late meant life was giving you extra time. I smiled at the sound. Maybe she was right. Maybe this peace, this healing, was our extra time. As the stars came out, I realized something simple, something I'd missed through all the grief and the lessons and the silence: love doesn't end. It just changes its shape. Sometimes it's a necklace, sometimes a foundation, sometimes a hug on a porch at sunset. And sometimes, it's just a quiet man sitting beside his daughter, finally at peace. I looked out toward the garden, the one she planted, the one still blooming no matter what life took away, and whispered under my breath, "She's home now." Lily glanced at me. "What did you say?" "Nothing," I said with a smile. "Just talking to your mom." She smiled too. "Tell her I said thank you." I nodded. "She knows." The night settled around us, soft and forgiving. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the ache of what I'd lost. I felt the grace of what I'd kept. Because revenge, if it's done right, isn't about payback. It's about restoration. And in that quiet summer dusk, with my daughter beside me and my wife's memory shining between us, I realized, we'd finally restored what mattered most: love. If this story spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can continue the journey by clicking the box on the left. Thank you for being here.